All right, let's try this quick. Hey, my name is John Carson. Thanks for joining me today for a quick conversation about Dragon Quest 1 and 2's HD-2D Remake that's coming out later this year. We were at PAX East a couple of weeks ago. Square Enix invited me to play a build of Dragon Quest 1 and 2. We only got a few minutes with each game, obviously not enough to get a full grasp of the games since these are pretty big RPGs. I think maybe not the first game. They are doing quite a bit to modernize Dragon Quest 1 and 2, so let's talk a little bit about that. So Dragon Quest 1 was the first game that I got my hands on. As you probably know already, Square Enix is taking its original Dragon Quest trilogy and remaking them in the HD-2D style. So completely new graphics, sprites, all that, the whole 9 yards. If you played Dragon Quest 3 last year, it's going to be a very similar visual experience for you with 1 and 2. Going into 1's it's the prototype RPG. There's not a lot to that game. You're kind of going from place to place, gearing up your character and defeating the big bads as you go. With Dragon Quest 1 HD-2D Remake, I think you're mostly doing the same thing there. One of the big differences that we ran into right away is that instead of doing one-on-one battles between your character and the monsters, there's, at least in the older versions, it was just you against one monster at a time. They are adding multiple monsters to battles. That's to make it a little bit tougher for players, and it's going to be a little bit meatier for modern sensibilities. Obviously, there's the HD-2D graphical update, but there's also a couple other changes that they're making. So with Dragon Quest 1 and 2, they are adding more cutscenes to the games. Not like big cinematics or anything, but little vignettes as you walk into areas or characters that you talk to. There's a little bit more going on with conversations and storytelling moments, especially in 1 that didn't have a ton of those. So the first one that we experience is in Dragon Quest 1. We are going to Temple of Erdrick, and once we step in there, we meet a group of adventurers who are looking to stake their claim on being heroes. And you see a conversation play out between them, and then as you're going through that temple, you are seeing them struggle throughout the temple, throughout the dungeon, and it makes you feel like you are a better hero than them, that you are worthy of Erdrick's legacy, and they are not, which is a neat little touch. But yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to talk about with Dragon Quest 1. I think that is a game that, if they're doing more with it, we'll probably see it when we get the full game in our hands. But with like 15-20 minutes for each of these games, we're not getting a great grasp of all of the changes that they're making. With Dragon Quest 2, you're no longer a single person. You have a party of characters. You have different classes and abilities between them. So you're a little bit more capable than you are in Dragon Quest 1. But it's still pretty tough. I actually died in a place called Moonbrook, which is where they sent us to during this demo. And Moonbrook is this place that one of the characters is from. You travel there, and the whole place is just destroyed. There's purple miasma and ooze and goo everywhere. It's poisoning the town. And it poisons you, too. Once you walk up to it in the overworld, it starts pinging you for damage as you're walking to the entrance, which I think is a really cool touch. Once you're inside, you get to see more of the HD-2D visuals, which I think look pretty nice. It's nothing incredibly stunning, like it's not super realistic or anything. If you've seen HD-2D before, it's a nice mix between, let's say, Super Nintendo graphics with some modern day sensibilities. Looks great though. Played Dragon Quest 3, it's going to look pretty similar to that. In Moonbrook, we also get another of the new cutscenes talking about what happened in Moonbrook and the character in your party that is from there. But yeah, with this preview, didn't really see a ton, which is not disappointing. I understand. We only have an hour with 2 RPGs. There's not a lot you can really show in that time, but they wanted to show us mainly the changes to the storytelling with those additional cutscenes, the changes to the battle mechanics with Dragon Quest 1 specifically, that you are now fighting groups of monsters instead of just one-on-one, which is a pretty big change for that game. But also just Dragon Quest 1 feels a little bit meatier than the versions I've played before, which is nice. You are paying for a full-price product with 2 different RPGs in it. It would be nice if Dragon Quest 1 feels like it's on par with Dragon Quest 2 with the amount of content that it has, and that it feels weighty enough in that product. And I think it might be. The other thing that I noticed playing between the two, and just only, like I said, only having a few minutes between them, is Dragon Quest 2 has a much different soundtrack than Dragon Quest 1, which works in its favor, especially after playing 3 and then going into 1 and then going into 2. There's going to be a lot of repetition in Dragon Quest themes and characters and visuals and combat and all of that. And I think the difference in Dragon Quest 2's soundtrack from Dragon Quest 1 is pretty stark, and I think it makes it feel like a completely different game, which is important, especially after hours and hours and hours of playing through this Dragon Quest trilogy. Hopefully you all can hear more of that soundtrack at some point. I don't really have any of that here, unfortunately, but it does offer a different vibe from Dragon Quest 1, which I really appreciate. And I think that's mainly it. We didn't get to see a ton, but we got to see enough. The other thing that we weren't told then, but we do know now, is the release date of this package. So Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D Remake will be out on October 30th. We have a few months to collectively, and I bet you also didn't finish Dragon Quest 3, to finish Dragon Quest 3 before 1 and 2 come out, to complete that trilogy. They did add more things to 1 and 2 to make it feel like a cohesive trilogy, which is very, very cool, especially since they're packaging this together as like the Eric trilogy. So that's it for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D Remake, at least for the little bit of preview session that we had at PAX East. If you like this video, let me know. Leave a message in the comments, and I want to try to do more of these as we move into Summer Game Fest. I'll be there all Summer Game Fest week, a weekend from Thursday to Monday. I'll be at Playdays. I'll be around the show, seeing various games, hopefully making more videos, talking with friends, doing little preview content like this. So if you like this, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you want to see in the coming weeks. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.